of Justice that was been talking to me. And now when I was in Hawaii, they sent a CIA agent lady. See, the woman I worked for, her daddy worked in the CIA over at Hawaii. And since I had gone in 87, May 10th, 1987, to the CIA people, they didn't call them that. They called them Office of Personnel Management through Delta or American. I think it was Delta. You go to the desk and some other person, you tell them you're with OPM at the airports, and then they'd slip people. Some person would come from the back and come up to the airlines, back in the day. I'm sure Homeland Security has it totally secure now, different. But back in the day, they swapped people. This is, 40 years ago?
Well, that's part of the problem. Part of the problem I ran into is that you'd be assigned to a particular project, and you'd be with that particular company, and then once that was nearly finished, they'd drop you out, and you wouldn't. It was awfully hard to get in enough time that you could get any retirement. I would have like 10 or 12 years with one company, and 5 years with another company, and so the whole thing was for me to get a retirement and be able to have a little bit more relaxed life. And I wasn't alone, because I think this was happening to so many of us, particularly with the whole beginning of the whole NASA program.
Well, I don't think they have mine correct. I think they owe me a lot more money, and I don't think anybody would ever admit it, because here's the deal. When you sign paperwork up when you're a teenager, it doesn't make sense anyway. But they told me it'd be 10 years before they'd ever give me a real assignment, that they were going to watch me. And I thought, well, that was smart, right? So it's smart with NASA. And I didn't know NASA was started by the CIA. Did you?
No, I did not.
I didn't. I checked it out on the paperwork on Google, and something showed me, and then the National Archives, but it was the intelligence community, which was started, and why do I sound so country? Lord of mercy. Do I sound really...
What y'all talking about right now anyway? I don't understand.
I don't understand what is... Okay. Me, where's my radio voice? I don't know. But, today is okay. We're going to get this origin down, because it's important, because we're moving into what's called disclosure. And I told you I wanted to talk to you today, because Sunday is when we started. It's our 9th anniversary. We've got history, folks, in several languages, I guess, by now, because there's other countries, India and Pakistan and Norway, Norwegian people, and other countries have worked with me for years, back in the day when I wrote in Canada for UFO Digest. And so there's all kind of blogs and stuff. I talked about ufology church and Ascension age and what all this was about, and we lived through it. So in a way, you could say I've been doing this my entire life. But now here's the rub. Did the government, when they hired me as a teenager, Ken, when the extraterrestrials called me into NASA and I had a clearance, Chris Kraft approved mine and my husband's. Chris Kraft, the man that was running it at the time, and I don't just go research this. This stuff is in me, Ken. You know what I'm saying? This is what I live, so I don't have to ask nobody. But this is way before Homeland Security ever existed, and I remember that big rub too, because a lot of our intelligence agencies at the time didn't want Homeland Security. So we had a big rip in the intelligence community that I apparently was a part of, whether I was in uniform, out of uniform, working for a company on a contract, didn't know who I was, what I was doing, but somebody would come across, FBI, CIA, NIS, DEA, Department of Homeland Security didn't exist, right? But all these other intelligence communities did. So I'm like you. You were working like TRW, Grumman, Northrop or whatever, flying all these planes and then training all these, things, and then this equipment for the astronauts, and I was meeting them. But they called me, and I'm going to say the extraterrestrials, because apparently the people that were in charge don't even see me come and go half the time, and that's one thing I learned from the intelligence agency.
Yeah.
They taught me how to come and go, and I learned that in Sam Houston on the river when I met Angie Dickinson, because I wanted to be like her. So people, I think it was the ETs or the Men in Black or the government or all of them working together that trained me all these years.
Now, did you?
But go ahead.
The term BRN, Brown and Root Northrop, that was a combination of
I remember Brown and Root, sure, especially in Fort Hood. They were the big contractor there.
But you got to go one more step, not just Brown and Root Northrop. They got all three of them, and that's where I was walking. But the way that was set up, I believe, is that they would take everybody that had a specialty and education or whatever they need. They'd put us together on whatever one of the companies that was going to be doing that part of the government's project. And then we would wind up, as soon as we got that finished, they would dump us all off. And if we didn't have a contract with another company in there, we were totally at loss and had to start all over again. And that's why I wound up with, actually, retirement at all until I went to work for Grumman up in Seattle. Was a flight instructor, and if I hadn't hung on for long enough, I'd be sitting around here with no Social Security, no income. That was very common. That happened to 40 of us. So it sounded to me like you kind of got touched on some of that yourself.
Yeah, because my husband was able to, he went from NASA to his daddy with Grumman, lost his job, and so he moved up to Birmingham. So I had to go to college, according to the government. They sent people from Chicago office. Some man that Dr. Richard Allen Miller knows, Schweikert or something. I call him the smoking man. He's the one that recruited me and Tom. I was out riding horses with Joan Robinson Hill because her daddy liked me from Louisiana, and because we were into horses together, and me and her rode horses in Houston together. So we were about horses then, but somehow all that got all mixed up with the government and Yvonne McCutcheon's in the Spinnerets, Houston Spinnerets. So I don't know how all that went, but now she was a government contractor and brought up Brown and Root too. Then Northrop seemed like there was another name before that, but there was back in the day. There was in my family was Grumman, TRW, NASA. Of course, my husband. I remember the engineers liked me and my husband because directly related to NASA, not having to be a contractor like his daddy. But his daddy moved from NASA, I guess when you did on Grumman, because Don L. Parrish and the engineers couldn't be astronauts or something because they wanted pilots, right? But right. You're a pilot, so there was a rub there. But my husband didn't want to be an astronaut, but my kids act like he was because he's got certificates and his pictures in NASA and down here in Coral Gables where he worked with NASA on the walls. So they all love NASA. You know, they're NASA brats. So the kids all, they adored
my library, right? You've been inside my library looking at all the things on the walls. You were just describing them. Go ahead.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the different certificates for different events, even things you were involved in. Yeah, it's all history now. Gosh.
Well, remember they'd give us those little flags that went up, or they'd give us those Apollo patches.
Oh, yeah.
And,
I know.
Yeah.
You ought to see my flights, my jacket with all those patches all over it. Yeah, I'm looking at the pictures on the wall in here of me in my spacesuit with my different patches there. So yeah, but we're I think we're moving into a newer branch of
the U.S. Secret Space Force. Now that's always been around. It just wasn't official. So somehow somebody got Trump to make it, even though the military was involved, the military-industrial complex with the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. But it's, as far as I know, now NASA is still a separate entity, but I haven't done any research to legally know anymore what they do or how they do it, other than they,
NASA,
as far as, go ahead.
Yeah, NASA is, of course, an independent government deal, but they're also undercover involved in the secret space program. So yeah, there's so much going on, and having been out of it for so many years, I know you may have a similar problem. It's hard for us to be able to get in contact with people because they're all gone. And
they're all dead.
That's what I mean by gone.
Well,
yep.
Edgar Mitchell was our point of contact, but he started Noetic Sciences, and then that IRS agent down here, what was his name in Florida? He was on my radio show a couple of times. What was his name? Do you remember? He was with Edgar Mitchell, or at least he said he was. I couldn't prove it. And
we just lost another one of our old astronauts here in the past week or two. And Buzz Aldrin's still with us, to the best of my knowledge.
Buzz Aldrin, yeah. Now, he got his picture made, I think, with Trump, didn't he?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that.
I don't know if he did with Nixon or not, or Carter, or I don't know, but I know I didn't. But now, I did work for the President's Direct under hip pocket orders. That was when I moved from Hawaii in 94. But see, Homeland Security doesn't know about how they used to do business. Now, the Pentagon always thought the Pentagon was sort of in charge, but it seemed like that Office of Personnel Management, OPM, had a lot more power. So I don't know, because OPM's still out there. Now, OPM, let's see, now when I did security checks, we did the local, right? You do your local, and you can have your people bring that in. Now, this is back in the day, folks, 60s, 70s, 80s, because it was the Vietnam War. But you bring in your local, you go get your paper from your local sheriff, if you had a local office, like mine's Gulf Breeze, I'd go over and let them print out, I don't have anything on file, or if I did, give them a rap sheet. And then you take that in to get your interagency, INTNAC report, National Agency Check. And then after your INTNAC, you would have, if you had to, you'd get signed, like to come in, a basic, I used to could say them all. Then you'd have a basic confidential, and then if you're clear, back in the day, right, we had a swap. I don't know if you remember, Ken, from the 60s to the 80s, we swapped, and they lost, or said something burned or something in Balboa or something out there.
Yeah.
Do you remember NAS? They had my files at Millington, Dallas, NAS, right, or NAS Dallas, and they had them in Corpus Christi, because I was in Texas. And then they moved them to Balboa Hospital, and then Balboa Hospital lost them up in California to China Lake or something like that, China Lake.
Something like that. And we lost just about all the information we need from a huge fire. And,
what was the fire thing that they said they lost my files? What was that?
Yeah. Oh, I don't remember. I'm sorry.
Or is that just something when they can't find something, the file clerk says, it must have been lost in the fire. Now, I learned that some of these people in OPM and Men in Black or National Agency Check or DEA or DIA or government people 40 or 50 years ago would just snatch it. It was hard copy. We didn't have computer files. So they could snatch your file and you'd be gone. And I had some of those that I was working, and they said I would have no file. And they would not recognize me. And they took me in the basement. They took me in what they called the goat locker, or they took me under the basement at the hospital in Great Lakes and would tell me this stuff. They didn't say not to tell anybody. This is just what happened to me. So I was just a dumb kid. You wouldn't get
to see anything in writing. They'd tell you about it, and if you, I'm with you.
Well, this is important. important now because we're about disclosure, but these kids are all yelling disclosure, but I could go look up anything I wanted on the CIA and FBI files online. I don't know why they couldn't. Why are they having trouble